Okay. All right. Mr. Richmond, ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Uzuihe, ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Kelly, are you ready? All right. So the court will call cause number 323-109704-19. This is on the matter of Eric Christopher Martinez. This court, having previously adjudicated this child as delinquent on February 26th of 2020 on only paragraph 6, which is assault, a misdemeanor committed on May 31st, 2018, and the state waived paragraphs 1 through 5. The court then recessed for the disposition hearing, waiting for the psychosexual evaluation. And so my understanding is we do have the results back. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So we're ready to proceed to disposition.
Yes.
Okay. So, Ms. Martinez, this is not really a continuation. It's a different hearing, but the same rights I explained to you at adjudication. You understand? You no longer have the right. You gave up your right to remain silent, your right to confrontation, and cross-examination. You gave up your right to a jury trial, and there is no agreement. So there was no. You do have a right to appeal. Okay. So opening statements, Mr. Richmond.
Judge, what I'm going to ask for is that he be put on supervision for, I'd say, a couple of years. We're going to ask for a sex offender-like treatment, but with sort of a focusing on boundaries, identifying, respecting, those kinds of things, as well as no contact with the victim and some of the conditions that would go with the Schedule C. And that's kind of what I expect to be putting it in. I'm going to be bring the social history, the psychosexual, and some testimony from Ms. Rodriguez. And that's what I expect for summation at the start.
Ms. Uzuihe, do you have any objection to all these?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay. No, that's fine. I just didn't know if this is something we'd agree on or if there's not agreement. That's fine.
Not all of it, some of it, yes, but not all of it that we agreed on, Your Honor.
Okay, that's fine. Do you care to make an opening statement?
Myself?
Yes.
Your Honor, yes, the opening statement would be that we need you to consider the totality of the circumstances. We also need you to hear from the probation department what their views are.
You're from the what?
From the probation department.
Okay.
We also need you to hear from the parents of this child, and also consider how long this child has been on supervision, as a matter of fact.
All right. Okay. Yes. All right. Mr. Richmond?
Yeah, the state offers Petitioner's Exhibit 1, which is the social history dated June 29th of 2020, and attached to it is the psychosexual by Dr. Parnell.
No objection, Your Honor.
Petitioner's number 1 is admitted.
Sorry, and that's Dr. Ryan. And then the state calls Karina Rodriguez.
All right, Ms. Rodriguez, if you can please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial, that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
All right, thank you. You can lower your hand. All right, Mr. Richmond, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Rodriguez, what do you do for a living?
I work for the court intake unit for Tarrant County Juvenile Services.
How long have you worked in that?
Hold on a second. It's difficult to hear you here, Ms. Rodriguez. Is there any way you can maybe sit closer?
Okay. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you repeat that answer?
Yes. I work for the court intake unit for Tarrant County Juvenile Services.
How long have you worked in that capacity?
About 8 years.
And are you the intake officer assigned to Eric Martinez?
Yes.
Did you author the social history portion of Petitioner's Exhibit 1?
Yes.
During your time being the intake officer for Martinez, have you had a chance to, I guess, meet with him, talk to him, meet with Mr. Martinez's family, learn information about him, and review the psychosexual of Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Or other sources of information that you've also collected information about Mr. Martinez?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
are there other sources of information that you've gotten in coming up with your evaluation of Mr. Martinez as a intake officer?
A school record for last semester.
Okay. And based on your review of the records, do you have a recommendation for the disposition for Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Can you describe what that is?
We generally, whenever it's a sex offense, follow the recommendation made by the psychologist, which would be counseling with an LSOTP. But in talking with Rita previously and with you, we think it would also just be appropriate for him to participate in a sexual boundaries program.
Okay. And just a note, in Dr. Ryan, he recommends a LSOTP treatment program.
He does, but I think he wrote on there, if adjudicated on a sex offense, that he would recommend the LSOTP, which he doesn't have the sex offense now anymore.
Okay. He also recommended, I guess, periodic Eric's risk and protective factors.
Yes.
As well as that he participate in extracurricular activities.
Yes.
And that's for getting like pro-social activity and having positive interactions with peers.
Yes.
And then there was a recommendation for a safety plan for younger siblings in the home and him attending church as also part of the recommendation as well.
Correct.
And can you talk about, I guess we'll start with the last one. Do you have any recommendations of what a safety look like?
Well, the younger children in the home are ages 9 and 10, and the victim wasn't a sibling. It was a girlfriend. So I think, the mom's at home. She doesn't work. So I think she offers adequate supervision in the home, supervising Eric.
And then have you had any discussion with the family or anything about possible extracurricular activities for him to participate in?
He's interested in that. He does go to church and he does play instruments and all that. They're just not sure what school he's going to go to this fall because of, everything going on with COVID-19 and all that. So
once he gets more settled down in a situation, does that seem like a good recommendation that could be part of the plan for Eric?
Yes.
Okay. Can you talk to the court a bit about the different treatment options that you've looked into that you think may be appropriate for Eric?
So for the sexual boundaries program, the only thing that we could find was for him to be placed on the sex offending caseload so that he can participate, so that we can pay for it because it's pretty expensive. But through the department with Dr. Ryan, I did call the Women's Center and they said that they can only offer that type of programming to a victim, not to the offender. I also called Lena Pope Home, and they do have a sexual boundaries program, but the cutoff is 14 and Eric is 15. So that really just leaves us with, Dr. Ryan or one of the other psychologists, which is a financial burden for the family, which is why he would have to be placed on the sex offending caseload so that we could pay for it.
Okay. In addition to obviously no contact with the victim, are there other conditions of probation and the standard conditions of probation that go for every youth? Are there other conditions of probation that you would recommend the court impose?
Not really. I've supervised Eric since December of 2018, and I've never had any problems with him at all. I touch base with mom every now and then, and there's really no behavioral problems with him.
And is there any further information outside of what's in the social history and the psychosexual that you feel the court it would be useful to the court for this disposition?
No, I did ask Jim, the supervisor for the sex offending caseload, to also participate in case the court had questions about the sexual boundaries program and all that.
Okay. I believe those are the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Do we hear?
Yes, Your Honor. Okay, Officer Karim.
Yes.
All right. On the recommendations of the psychologist, those are typical of what you see for sex offenders.
Ms. Uzue, can you say that part again?
Okay.
Before you said sex offender.
Okay. I said on the psychologist's recommendation. Do you get that part?
Yes.
Okay. So on that recommendation, what you see there, is that typical of what you see when there is an adjudication for sex offense?
Yes. Yes, that's a very typical recommendation.
Okay. So this psychologist does not know that Eric is not adjudicated on sex offense. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if the psychologist knew. I would think so because we did the psychological after he was adjudicated. So I think that's just standard language though on the psychologicals, just that if adjudicated on a sex offense and then the rest of it.
Okay, all right. So, but you think that it would be to the best interest of Eric and of course the community if he takes the sex, what is it called? Healthy sex. Let me get the language, I'm sorry. Hold on, Your Honor, please, I'm so sorry. Okay, the healthy sexual boundaries, right? If he takes that class, that's actually good for him. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, from your supervision of Eric and from the adjudication, Eric does not need to be placed on the sex offender's caseload except the fact that he is needing to take that class. Is that correct?
Yes, just because of the financial burden, because he could be placed on traditional caseload and still take the program, but he would have to pay for it out of pocket, which is the issue.
Exactly. So, and how much would this, from your estimates or from your experience, how much does this kind of cost?
$70 to $100 a session.
Okay. And he would be, do you know how many sections he will be required to attend?
I think it's like 12 or something like that.
Okay. All right. Now, you've been, like you testified before, that you've been supervising Eric since December 2018.
Correct.
From your experience and from your interaction with Eric and the family, could you please kind of give the judge some information about Eric and about his family?
I mean, Eric is described as being a good kid. Mom has never called with behavioral problems with him. He doesn't even go out unless it's a family. They all go out as a family. They're very close-knit, strict with rules. I mean, really just no behavioral problems with him.
And this is his first referral to your department, is that correct?
Correct.
I pass the witness.
Richmond?
No redirect, Your Honor. Thank you.
Please call your next witness.
I think the state rests, Your Honor.
Is there allocution in this case, by the way?
I didn't hear you, Your Honor.
Oh, Mr. Richmond, is there an allocution in this case?
You mean like a victim statement?
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. Mr. Willis, I saw was.
Yeah, there's not, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you for asking.
And Your Honor, I'm gonna call Mr. Officer Davidson.
Yes, Mr. Davidson, please raise your right hand.
Sure.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. Ms. Uzue, please proceed.
Yes, Officer Davidson, you heard the questions that were asked Officer Karina. If you remember, and if those questions were directed to you, would your answer be different?
I did read the psychosexual that Dr. Ryan completed, and I did read the statement that he put in there saying that if he was adjudicated for a sexual offense and he thought that sex offender treatment would be appropriate for Eric. And I think in this case, since he has not been adjudicated on that, they normally put that kind of a statement in there because they realize that the court is going to make that decision in the final analysis. And I know that the program that we do have to offer, if it's not full-blown sex offender treatment, is a kind of healthy sexual boundaries, healthy sex education kind of class, which does typically go about 12 sessions and can be completed in about 6 months. And we do have that as a component in our contracts with Dr. Ryan. And that class covers a variety of topics, dealing not only with developing healthy sexual relationships, understanding the difference between coercion and consent and what is the age of consent. It also talks about, when someone says no, the boundaries mean to stop and not to push it any further, and realizing the legal consequences of those decisions, even for, young people. And I know that those are covered typically in about 12 sessions. So that is a program that we do have available. And with him being on our caseload, that's a benefit that he would have as far as that class being something the county does cover.
Okay, thank you. Now, my next question is, how long do you think it would be more effective and more appropriate for Eric to be on supervision to take this class? In other words, how many months of probation would serve him best and be more efficient and more effective for your department to administer this class to him?
I can tell you historically, on a misdemeanor kind of probation, we usually don't see more than a year. These classes can typically be done in about 6 months. That's assuming, of course, that he gets in the classes, participates, and completes the objectives in the class. Obviously, if he were not to be able to complete the objectives in 6 months, that's something that would have to be brought back before the court if we're running up against, say, a 6-month schedule. So, I think by the time we get disposition, we get the file and the kid gets started, he's going to have to attend every session without fail and complete the assignments that Dr. Ryan will give him, and put a good faith effort into completing those assignments so he can get that successful completion letter from Dr. Ryan. So 6 months would be the minimum, and typically we see these for up to a year.
Thank you. And I pass this witness, Your Honor, actually.
Mr. Richmond?
No cross-examination, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Uzuihe, your next witness?
I would call Ms. Martinez. I'll call the mom.
Okay. Hello, Ms. Martinez.
Hello.
If you could please raise your right hand for me. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial, that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And you are Annette Martinez?
Yes, sir.
That's A-N-N-E-T-T-E?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ms. Uzuihe, please proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Annette, Ms. Martinez, of course, you're the mother to Eric, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And ever since this incident happened, what kind of child has Eric been? Sorry, let me rephrase that. What kind of child has Eric been at home and in school?
Well, he did struggle at school because he had to go back to an SOS school. And, he had to get out of choir. He kind of messed that up. This whole case messed that up. And he's doing good in school. He passed and he's going to start high school this coming school year. And he's been fine. He's at home. He does great. It's a lot of stress on him because it's stretched out so long.
All right. So have you had difficulties in supervising Eric at home?
No.
Has your husband?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Has your husband ever had any type of issues with Eric?
Never.
So Eric has been a very compliant child, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you also think that if the judge orders probation for Eric and orders classes and conditions, do you think it would be a problem for Eric to do those conditions?
No, not a problem at all.
Do you think that you will even have any problem with Eric in terms of adequately supervising him?
No.
Has Eric had any problem with any other child, your younger children, or even at church or anywhere?
No, never.
All right. So you all attend your activities as a family together, is that correct?
Yes, we do.
So at all times, you all are together, basically, is that correct?
Yes,
Except when Eric is in school, is that correct?
correct.
So Eric doesn't actually like go out to friends and whatever, is that right?
No, no.
Okay. So you are asking the court to follow the recommendation of the probation department, is that correct then?
Yes.
Okay, I pass the witness.
Richmond?
Martinez, are you aware of extracurricular activities that Eric has in the past and could re-continue, or that he can participate in going forward?
He was playing football. He has switched and he's been doing basketball. And he's still a part of the youth worship at church.
His sports involvement, is this a year-round thing or a seasonal thing?
It's seasonal.
And so how much of the year is he doing sports?
I would say like at least 3 to 4 months of the year.
And then the church, is that a year-round or a seasonal thing?
That's year round.
You mentioned he was in the choir. Do you know if that's something that...
I'm hoping that he gets back in the choir. He had to stop the last 2 years because of
Okay.
everything that was going on.
And do you feel that with regards to your family's, time and financial resources, that these are things he could continue doing?
Yes.
Okay. What kind, if at all, phone does he have?
A phone? It's a.
Does he have a phone, I guess, is the first question.
Yes, it's an Android phone.
Does he have internet access?
Yes.
And outside of the phone, what other kinds of things does he have for internet access?
Just that. And we just got it just for school.
And do you have any kind of monitoring software or practices that you do to kind of check on what he's doing with it?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sir. You
No
broke up
problem.
a little bit.
Do you have anything like a monitoring software or anything you do to kind of check in on what he's doing with it?
Yes, I've been using the Google. It's I don't know what it's called, but it connects to Google.
And if he had a condition that, say, he wasn't able to possess pornography or something like that, is that something that you would report to his probation officer if you found that?
Yes.
Okay. And then with regards to, who the victim in the case is, correct?
Correct.
Is there any problem with Eric not having contact with her?
No, none at all.
All right. Thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Yes, sir.
Duzuwehe, redirect.
I don't have any other question for this witness. However, I would like to call back Officer Karina.
Yes, Ms. Rodriguez, you are still sworn in as a witness on this case. Please proceed.
Thank you. Okay, Officer Karina, just to reiterate, the only reason why your department is recommending that Eric be on the sex offenders caseload is just for him to be able to take the classes and have your department pay for it. Is that correct?
Correct.
And from my understanding is that you are not recommending that Eric does all the sex offenders conditions, just take the class and still do the conditions for the traditional probation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
No cross, Your Honor.
Okay. Suzuwe, your next witness.
I don't have any other witness, Your Honor. Just have to close.
And no further evidence for me either.
All right, closings.
So Judge, this case, I think, and you look, there's a quick description on the second page of Petitioner's Exhibit 1. This is one of boundary pushing, of pushing it past where a level that's appropriate. And I think that's what kind of case this is. So in terms of that, it's a bit more than your usual ABI because, I don't know, pushing in sort of sexual offense type stuff is a little bit more than your usual assault case. So I think a little bit longer supervision is called for. I would say somewhere between 18 to 24 months. I think some kind of sex offender like treatment can be, it could be a boundaries one focused on this. That's my main focus. I would like something probably at a minimum what they're describing with Dr. Ryan. If we're going to err, I'd rather err on the side of more comprehensive than less. But my goal is to deal with this exceeding of boundaries, kind of understanding where those are. I understand Eric's young and, you know, early relationships may be hard to figure that stuff out, but that's what we want to address. In terms of the Schedule C conditions, I don't know that all of them are appropriate and necessary in this case. I think in any case involving either sexual assault or something like it, I think limitations on pornography are always a good idea. I'd ask the court order that he not possess or view pornography, just because it's such a driver in these cases.
Define pornography for me?
I'm sorry?
You define pornography for me?
Pornography?
Yes. Excuse me.
As the Supreme Court says, you know it when you see it.
That's my problem though, isn't it?
Well, we have a condition that is prohibited from viewing or possessing pornographic materials in any form or media on our normal Schedule C. So I'd ask for a similar condition to that one. I mean, we order it in almost every single case.
Yeah, but I'm digressing a little bit. So on this one, I know what the original allegations were, but ultimately the stipulation was it was just an assault, right? Causing bodily injury.
Yeah.
So I see a little bit of the background in the social history. That's kind of what I'm curious about is it seems like this girlfriend, she feels violated because she felt pressured. So, I mean, I guess consent wasn't there, but I understand the difficulty in your case. And I understand the merits and I understand the difficulty in Uzuihe's case as well. I mean, it goes both ways. This difficult case. I'm at that kind of cross point right now where I'm trying to decide on this disposition, how much do I treat this as an assault because the state waived paragraphs 1 through 5, and how much do I treat this as a real sex offender case because there's a victim and an underlying, I guess, overtone of a sexual offense. And so I'm just, when we start talking about the sex offender caseload, I see in the stipulation, everyone agreed that this would only be a misdemeanor assault bodily injury, but I also see that everyone agreed that there should be a sex offender caseload for probation. Like, I get that, but I'm kind of putting you on the hot spot, Mr. Richmond, because, I mean, I see what you mean about probation, but how far, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, if it was really a sex offense case, why didn't you pursue a sex offense case, right? At a certain point, you decide to let it go. So how far do we push it on the probation side?
This was a compromise situation, and I mean, essentially it comes down to I have a few priorities. I want them on supervision. I want some classes that are going to address the boundary exceeding. Want a no contact order with the victim. And I think in cases where sex type stuff is appropriate, I think not to possess or view pornography. My main important things, whether it's on the sex offender caseload with the probation department or on the regular, I don't have a strong opinion on that, and I'll defer to the court. I think the question here is mostly a matter of finances. It'll get paid for. The probation department can help financially if it's on sex offender, and they won't if it's not. I don't have a strong opinion on that, so however the court wants to deal with that. But in terms of, I recognize where the court's coming from, that this isn't quite our usual, it is not that kind of sex offender case in terms of like some of the ones we get. And that's why I have sort of a dialed down request of what I'm looking for. I have these certain priorities and how the court feels to deal with them. That's
All right.
where I am.
Okay.
So my last request is for the no contact with the victim. And so those are my primary requests. The court has further questions. Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Uzuihe?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, no contact with the victims, yes, because my clients have not even had any contact with the girl, and there has not been any reports of any harassment or any type of thing. So yes, the number of years, Your Honor, I'm thinking that Officer Davison and Officer Rodriguez, they have kind of input on this. 6 to 12 months will do. So anything outside that, Your Honor, will be, I would say excessive punishment, because this child, again, has been on probation technically since December 2018. How old? He was like 13. 13 or 12 and a half years old. He has been on probation. So he has taken the punishments, any type of punishment you can think of. This case has disrupted the life of this child. The mom can tell you that. He dropped out, he messed up his grades, messed up his participation in the choir and everything else. However, he has been able to kind of, done good irrespective of all this. But yes, this has disrupted him, Your Honor. I think it would be excessive punishment to even extend this probation. If you would ask me, Your Honor, I would even recommend, ask for, or rather 6 months probation, because that would be very effective. Eric can do this. Eric can complete any condition that you gave to him, especially with this COVID, being at home. He can complete any of these conditions. So we are asking for 6 months probation. But at most 1 year. But we think that this will be effective. You're not now. You're saying that it's like if you think that this child will benefit more from anger management classes, then he would take it. But if you also think that he will benefit more from healthy sexual boundaries, then that's okay. Because from the probation officers, the only reason why we vying him to the sex offenders caseload is for them to be able to pay for these classes. The parents can't afford it. It's going to cost about $1,000 to $1,200, and the parents can't afford it. So I had a meeting when I spoke to Officer Davison and Officer Rodriguez, who were like, okay, how would this be paid? So we say, okay, maybe it's better for him to be on the sex offenders caseload, so that way the department can pay it. So other than that, he couldn't have even been on the sex offenders caseload. So, Your Honor, I'm saying that to say that it will not be, I'm saying that to say for the judge not to order him to do the other conditions that sex offenders do. Your Honor. Thank you, Judge.
All right, Mr. Martinez, having heard the competent evidence provided to this court, the court will find that there's a need of rehabilitation and the protection of the public requires disposition to be made. I'm going to honor the stipulated agreement, which is probation. In this case, that will require you to be part of the sex offender caseload and that you'd have no contact with the victim, Jessica Jimenez. You have to no unsupervised contact with any child under 12 years of age that is not a relative without written permission from the probation officer. And you comply with all of the conditions of probation as ordered by the court and our probation department. Okay. So I'm going to order that also as a condition of your probation for you to successfully complete the licensed sex offender treatment program. Okay. That's a program they're talking about. It's 6 to 9 months, depending on how active you are, or if you have problems with it, it can last over a year. I mean, that's really, it's up to you how active you are and how you're engaged in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and order this probation for a period of 2 years. And the reason why is because I'm just caring about you completing this counseling, okay? But I've also put an entry in here that as soon as you finish your licensed sex offender treatment program, I'll discharge you from probation. So your probation can be done in theory in 6 months, as long as you do that program and you do it earnestly and you're actively engaged. However, if you drag it out and you don't do it, we're going to be here all the way almost to your 18th birthday. You understand? That's what I care about. Obviously, there's things about this case I really don't know. But what becomes evident to me is that there's a fine line between somebody who is willing to abuse another person and a person who's just a normal, curious 13-year-old boy, 14-year-old boy. I mean, I don't know where it is, but I know you're awfully close to that line, okay? And so you understand the position that I'm in. I want to make sure you take this class. You know, if it's just a natural curiosity thing, then the class isn't going to hurt you, right? It actually gives you more information going forward in life. If it is something that's abnormal and you are dangerous, and this class tells us things. But also, here's the thing about the class, is if it turns out there's a whole lot of things that pop up, the counselor will not successfully discharge you because they'll say this program's not right for you. Okay, so I'm just letting you know that you can't control everything, but you can control a lot of things in this case. But my big concern right now is just to make sure that you get this program, as I am in most every case involving alleged sexual conduct. All right, so the court will also make a finding that the child's parent made a reasonable good faith effort to prevent the child from engaging in delinquent conduct, and that despite the parent's efforts, the child continued to engage in such conduct. And the court will waive any requirement for community service that may be imposed on a parent under this section 54.044 of the Texas Family Code. Mr. Richmond, there is no restitution in this case, correct?
I don't believe so.
All right, so specifically, the reason for this disposition is the protection of the public, Mr. Martinez. Just in case you do have deeper rooted psychological issues, I want to make sure they're addressed by our probation department. Finally, I want to let you know your case cannot be transferred to adult court or the Texas Department of Corrections. Right? Because I followed this agreement and the stipulation, you do not have a right to appeal. This is final. I will have a piece of paper that Ms. Rodriguez will give you that will explain that right to you. I'll let you know that you may have a right to seal this record. Your attorney can advise you that's under Chapter 58 of the Family Code, and that the court will make an affirmative finding that the victim of this offense was under 17 years of age. All right, so Mr. Martinez, do you understand what I expect from you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I want to let you know one more thing. I don't know what happened, but do you understand in this day and age, what can be truly innocent or non-malicious behavior can be construed as something very, very, I guess, nefarious?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess my advice to you, just as man to man, is don't put yourself in that situation again. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Always steer clear, far, far, far on the righteous side of things so you don't have to be in this position. Okay? All right, so Ms. Rodriguez, I have the document entry put in here. I'll give that certification form for Mr. Martinez. Is there anything that I've missed, Mr. Richmond?
Judge, apart from the standard conditions of probation and the treatment, is the court imposing, and the no contact with the victim, is the court imposing any additional conditions of supervision?
Just what's in the, I'm just following the stipulation that y'all put down, but there's going to be things in the sex offender caseload that's more restrictive than the traditional probation or what you put in here. That's just based on Mr. Davidson's caseload. So he's going to have other things like the no pornography. That's part of the sex offender caseload. That's
Okay.
So it's going to be our sex offender caseload, which is a little bit more restrictive than our typical probation. But Mr. Martinez, it's up to you. You do everything right and you engage and you get something out of the counseling, then this probation is done sooner than later. Okay, so it's,
No further questions from me.
okay. Mr. Martinez, I'm just trying to give you an incentive to work harder and every reason not to be lazy. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Uzuihe, anything that I've missed?
Well, Your Honor, I have a question or kind of clarification. So on the classes that he needs to take or on the counseling, would that be the healthy sexual boundaries or is it something else?
Would that be what?
Would that be the healthy sexual boundaries recommended by the probation officers or is that something else?
Yeah, isn't that, that's my understanding. Mr. Davidson, am I correct? That's going to be part of the LSO2P. No, you're on mute, Mr. Davidson.
You're on mute. Okay.
Yeah, we have two basic tracks. One is the full-blown sex offender treatment that would require polygraphs, and there's 12 modules, and that does take up to a year minimum. But the sexual boundaries is something that could be completed in 6 months. He attends all the sessions, and Dr. Ryan has no concerns.
And that is part of the LSOTP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, two different tracks.
I beg your pardon?
There's two different tracks, if you want to call it that.
Yes, that's the track that I want, is the one about the boundaries.
Okay, all right, that's I understood.
Okay. All right, does that answer your question, Ms. Uzuihe?
Yes, it did. Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. All right, so Mr. Martinez, this is the form. You'll see it. Your attorney will give you, you'll have the yellow copy and your mom will get the green copy, okay? All right, thank you very much. That'll be the order of the court.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. See y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Uzuihe.
All right, thank you. You did
Yes,
say
ma'am.
my name. You did say my name right.
I did?
No, you did not.
Oh, I didn't?
Judge is laughing. It's okay. I forgive you this time. Next time I will not.
I will work on it.
Please do. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.